Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Passover sermon with TBA Rabbinic Intern, Aviva Frank. Scheduling Holy Time.
More than 20 years ago, when I showed up very nervous on a college campus in Washington, D.C., there was this fellow there. Her name was Aviva. She was there, even if she didn't have all the answers to my questions. It was her countenance and her calm and her confidence that made it possible for me to make a new home across the country. Never forgot her face, the way that she was and walked in the world. Sudden, this very same person, this human and this student of life, showed up at Temple Beth. First, she showed up as one of the students at Ziegler, where she's studying for her rabbinical ordination. And in both spaces, both at Ziegler and here at Beth, every one of us rabbis is very grateful for at least three things that Aviva offers in every space that she walks into. Patience and kindness that she has for people, whether they think that they should know more. She always makes sure that they know that what they know is exactly what they need to know. For putting Torah at the front of everything that she does and everything that we do and help to lift up this team even better. And for bringing derech eretz and a way of walking in the world that actually does, as our rabbis teach us, come even before Torah. So with that introduction, such an honor for me to invite Aviva to come forward as one of our rabbinic interns and share with us a drash this morning.
This week, Agam Berger shared her incredible story in the Wall Street Journal. In the piece, I kept my freedom in Hamas captivity for 482 days. I stayed on the path of faith, including a Passover celebration last year. Agam, who is the last Israeli female soldier to be released from Hamas captivity, you might know her by her ability to braid hair. In the piece, she details how she, Agam, and Leary, against all odds, celebrated Passover together last year in a pitch-black tunnel. Even in their own plague of darkness, they were the light. For they had heard on the radio that a Passover table had been set in Hostage Square with empty seats for them and other hostages. We were waiting for them. They then counted the days and celebrated their Passover celebration. This scheduling of holy time gave them hope and resilience, and in turn they inspired others. Returned captives have cited that Leary and Agam gave them the will to persevere, the will against all odds. That is why God, and in turn we, schedule holy time. We celebrate even when we do not feel like celebrating, even when we have uncertainty, even when we might feel hopeless, even now in a time filled with so many unknowns, and it being 1 year, 6 months, and 7 days of the Hamas war. Day 557 of our hostages not yet returned. And hope might seem lost, but God scheduled for us holy time to give us a reason to come together, a reason to have resilience, and an excuse and a purpose to celebrate with one another. Resiliency is not found in a vacuum, it is found within a community. This past January, while in Hostage Square, I met Leary's dad, and the previous summer, also in Hostage Square, her aunt. Her aunt asked me, how are Jewish Americans responding to increased anti-Semitism in America? Were they shying away from being Jewish? I said some, and others were hanging a mezuzah for the first time, or lighting Shabbat candles, or wearing that Star of David they were gifted for their B'nai Mitzvah that had sat in a drawer for years. She said the same too was happening in Israel. She then urged me and others to keep on our lips the names of the hostages. When I shared with her the efforts of our synagogue and pressmen and other congregations around the U.S., she was shocked. She did not know. It brought her comfort. In our Torah reading this morning, the yearly cycle of holy time is specified to the Israelites by God via Moses. Just as we are urged to see ourselves as being freed from slavery in every generation, so too we imagine this task, this charge and this gift of how we mark time as our very own, how do we connect to this in this generation? How do we activate time to make it holy, to make it sacred, even in the unknown? In fact, our first action item as soon-to-be freed slaves in Egypt was to set up a calendar. Can you think of anything more fitting? Free people are in charge of our time. While in Egypt under slavery, we did not have this luxury or opportunity. So in Exodus, we are told to set up a calendar and have the first month be Nisan in preparation for the Karban Pesach and the holiday of Hag HaMatzot. So flash forward to today's Torah reading, where we are instructed, these are the set times of God, the sacred occasions which you shall celebrate each at its appointed time. Ready or not, there's a holiday at its appointed time. From Shabbat to the pilgrimage festivals, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, and for the counting of the Omer. We are instructed, and from the day on which you bring the sheaf of elevation offering, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. Then you shall bring an offering of new grain. We began counting the Omer last night. And so as we try to see ourselves in every generation as being freed from slavery, and how do we connect to this holy time to activate it, we might not be taking an omer of barley to the temple, but we are counting 49 and then 50 days to Shavuot. So, question, is counting the omer then 1 mitzvah or 49? And I have another question for another time. Is Pesach actually 2 holidays synthesized into one? Karban Pesach and Hag HaMatzot? But we'll address that later. So right now, what does it mean? Count the Omer, and is it 49 or is it 1? What kind of mitzvot or blessing do we have? It says to count 7 complete weeks. And how much should this word complete or tamimot be emphasized? So we can look at a discrepancy that exists between Ashkenazi and Sephardic communities for a little insight. It starts with Alfasi and Maimonides. Alfasi wrote that at the end of the Chalakot to Tractate Paschim, we're obligated to count the days of 7 weeks from the evening of the 15th going to the 16th, as it is written, you shall count. The Torah says you must count 50 days, and just like there is a commandment to count days, so too is a commandment to count the weeks. Alfasi emphasizes then the weeks and the days. In contrast, Maimonides wrote, it is a positive commandment of count 7 complete weeks, tamimot, from the day of the bringing of the sheaf offering, and it says you shall count for 7 weeks. And it is the commandment to count the days with the weeks, and it said count 50 days, thus emphasizing the complete total or unit. This above controversy continues on and reflects in what Yosef Karo says in the Shulchan Aruch and what the Ramah says as well. Does anyone want me to translate this for them? I'm going to give you an example. So in Ashkenazi communities, we would say today is the 15th day, making 2 weeks and 1 day of the Omer. Whereas Sephardim will say today is the 15 days of the Omer, which are 2 weeks and 1 day. So that still doesn't quite answer yet. What does this mean? Is it 49 blessings or just 1 blessing, as Maimonides says? And how does this relate to if we forget to count one night with a blessing? Because we know that counting is so important, scheduling holy time, but we also don't want to make an unnecessary blessing or a blessing in vain. So there's some opinions out there that if one who forgot to count during the night should count during the day, they remember during the day, they can say it without a blessing during the day, but then they may continue at night with a blessing. And if one person is uncertain, if they missed the previous day's count, and they're permitted to count the remaining days with a blessing. So something interesting about uncertainty actually is in your favor. And if someone forgets completely, they should still continue to count even without a blessing. So interesting. We think maybe we only have to do something, we'll make a blessing, but we saw at the Seder we did orchatz, we washed our hands without a blessing. So there's a merit, maybe still doing an action of counting as free people, even if we don't make a blessing on it. The count in itself is enough. And if we find ourselves in this predicament, the Mishnah Berurah says that it's good to be around someone else that is making the blessing so you can hear them and say amen. So if you find that you forgot to count one day with a blessing, you Come to Daily Minyan and hear others count with a blessing and say Amen. I also encourage us to look at an amazing teshuvah by Rabbi Bradley Artson. You might know, he's the Dean of Ziegler, and Rabbi Aaron Alexander, about a missed day in the life of the Omer that came out in 2009. But why is there so much angst and uncertainty that exists around this time period and how it connects to the Omer and the blessings? This uncertainty is because historically this season was a very tense time for the Israelites because there were hot and dusty winds in Israel, and there still are today, but we have different kind of agricultural tools to overcome them. Back then, there was a big uncertainty: would the wheat crop survive and be ready to harvest during the time of Shavuot? The counting of the 49 and the 50 of Shavuot hinges on this harvest of wheat, the uncertainty what would happen. Also, historically, it's been an uncertain time for us as the Jewish people with the Bar Kokhba revolt and Rabbi Akiva's students. We also found there's been uncertain times in the world in our own lifetime, for example, during the pandemic, when the days blended into one another in 2020. I often would find myself thinking if only there was a way to count time or to mark days, to ground myself. And then I realized I had the Omer, and this evening ritual of counting brought me stability and hope and resilience during the pandemic. I have a question for us. When Leary and Agam counted to do the Passover Seder, do we know if they actually counted the correct day for the Seder? Did it matter? What does it mean for us to count now? Is it for God, for the community? Is it for hope and resilience? Is it for us as free people that we're given our first action item to create a calendar to find a way to count and mark time? How can we, if we can bless every day as we count the Omer or not, still be a blessing and be there for another in community and be resilient? How do we make our count over the next 7 weeks? Do we schedule this holy time by setting an alarm on our phone? Do we find a friend or chavruta to count with? Do we come to Daily Minyan? Do we create a ritual around our counting? Should we say it at the same time or in the same place in our home? Should we pour ourselves a cup of tea to drink before or after we count? Do we want to focus on the 49 levels that we learn about in Kabbalah and how those are gates to our character development? However we decide to mark the next 7 weeks, I do hope that we realize that it's a gift. And in these uncertain times, the ability to schedule holy time and to count is a way that we use our freedom in a positive way. Because what good is it to be free if we're not actually activating holy time?
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, go to www.tbala.org.